Sunday, May 10th. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, baby mamas. If your mom's still around, make sure you call her, tell her you love her, give her a hug if you can see her. But want to kind of jump in and give a recap on last week and what I'm looking at for the week ahead. As far as like macro events and data, on Tuesday we have CPI, so obviously keep an eye out on that. And then on Wednesday we have PPI as well. And on Thursday we do have GDP and jobless claims. And then on Friday, Warsh, the new Fed chair, should be in seat then. So that's some potential catalyst to move the market one way or another. And then for earnings, no big mags or anything like that. We got through that, but there's obviously some retail favorites in here: Circle, Hims, Oklo, Nimbus. Who else is in here next week? There's a couple names I was looking at. That was the guy I got to lay off until they're done. EOS, Rigetti. So not big market mover names, but definitely names that are high beta names. So that's kind of like just looking at the events next week. And then as far as like the charts, we've definitely seen some divergence between SPY and QQQ. As you can see, like Qs were up over 2% on Friday. Obviously the big rally with tech, and SPY up a little bit less than 1%. And the reason why, I think some people ask me, like, why did I enter those dated SPY puts? It was a key level that I was looking at all day. We weren't able to get through it. And that key level was 37.91. And what that was is actually, it's this wick from Thursday morning's pre-market before we, quote unquote dumped, right? We came up, we kept testing this wick, and we weren't able to get through it. So that's why I kind of felt comfortable, adding those dated puts for SPY. So, what I'll be watching for next week is, and futures open here in about 5-6 hours. So, we'll see what happens with that and a new week opening gap, whether it's a bull gap or a bear gap, and we know how to play that. But, are we able to kind of hold over this, let's call it 38, that 738 level? And if we are, and if we go up to 740, I'll probably, look to reposition those. If not, we stay over here, I'm really just gonna sit in those. They have plenty of time. They're not too far out of the money, so they won't decay either. So that's SPY, and then the Qs were obviously relatively very strong on Friday. It gave you every opportunity here, right? Either on the trend spine or the 90 EMA, you could have bought it up the whole day and rode it up, probably like 10-11 points if that's your kind of thing. Obviously, when we're this extended, overbought could stay overbought for a while, oversold could stay oversold. That's not an issue, but a lot of the more experienced investors and traders I know, they're waiting, right? Everyone's waiting for for some consolidation or retest, at minimum retest of the 20-21 day down here on the Qs, which is 50 points away, which is crazy. And then on SPY, it's about 30 points away, right? So everyone's kind of just waiting and consolidate, let it, if you're in something great, make sure to trim into strength. The other reason I feel comfortable holding those dated puts, or why I added them actually, is because the VIX has been holding this May open of, let's call it, it's about 17, right? It's been holding that May open. So that's bullish in the sense that if it's holding this as the floor, I'm probably looking for VIX to move back up, potentially get some volatility next week or the week of Nvidia earnings, which is in 2 weeks. So that's kind of what I'm looking at from the indice side. And then on the Bitcoin side, Bitcoin's been on a tear, right, since it kind of stabilized here, and then really the first week of April, we're seeing that uptrend with Bitcoin. It's been strong, reclaim the low, like the 8-day, the 21-day, and the 8-week, but we're still below this 200 SMA. I think once we could get over this 200 SMA and reclaim it, that's when it's really time to, we could say that we're back. But until then, that's kind of why I wasn't logging Tesla until Thursday, right? I was waiting for Tesla to reclaim the 200 SMA. So I'd watch for Bitcoin. What happens here with Sunday night futures? Maybe we get a pop up into the 200 SMA and rejects. So that's that as far as like the broader market. I want to go over three trades that I took on Friday specifically. The Tesla trade, actually, we took on Thursday. So we did a recap on this, but what was really waiting for on Tesla to go long is reclaiming the 200 SMA, which it did on Thursday on a gap up. And then I even put in the chat, like my main watch was to get a retest. So we got a retest here around midday. I think we entered maybe like 30 minutes later once I saw an uptrend. And I know that, a lot of people, including myself, right, were like, oh man, this is selling off. We're going to lose it. So it came down. We lost it down to like 402. And this is why I stick to my rule of I wait till close, right? I'm not going to make a rash decision just based off like a 30-minute candle, especially when you're looking at a larger, a larger time frame like the 200-day SMA. So waited for close. We're able to get that 30-minute bull pivot here. 30 minutes before close, and then 10 minutes before close, like 15 minutes, we saw a lot of volume come in with that news on, I think, like the China sales and something along the lines like the Y being like one of the only autonomous cars like approved, right? So that was great. And then what I was really looking for Friday morning was, this key level of 414.50 is, we needed to get over that and hold it. So we gapped up above it, which is great. Like that was great. I wanted to gap up above it, and we were able to ride that up to the next TPs, which is 420, 425 and 430. So at this point on Tesla, what I'm looking for, and I think Tesla's going to be one of the main vehicles I trade here over the next couple months, no pun intended, is that it holds this 414, right? And we get that the EMAs to start coming up closer here. It consolidates around the 414, or at least retest it. And on a retest of 414, I'll be looking to enter again to go long. So that's Tesla. The second trade that we took, which was I think about 300%, was Moderna. Everything like with going on with the hantavirus, I mentioned this in the chat. Like there was a couple of names I'm looking at specifically: Moderna, Zoom. I was looking to short any kind of travel stocks because while I don't think we're going to end up like a 2020 lockdown scenario, I think travel is going to be really affected if there is more confirmed cases and it blows up more. Especially since the U.S. is not part of the WHO, the WHO, the World Health Organization. So we need to get a wrangle on this. If not, I think it could be a catalyst. But Moderna specifically, they're going to be working on a vaccine, right? So they're catching some bids early in the day. The intraday alert, the indicator actually triggered within the first 15 minutes when it broke the orb. I missed it because I was just focused on Tesla chart at that point. And then I caught it later, and really what I was looking for an entry was a retest of either the trend spine here or the 9 EMA on the 5-minute chart. So we got that retest. We were able to enter, I think, it was like 66 cents a contract, and then took some trims up with the final trim being at like 260 or something along those lines, right? So it was a great trade. Moderna, I think, on a bigger sense, on a broader sense, it looks great for continuation higher. We just really got to get over like this 56 level, right? So this is one I'd keep on my watch for sure. Obviously, if you bought it here in early November, it was $23, and you got over 100% here. The next name that we took on Friday was Carvana, CVNA. This was on my watch just simply because I actually didn't know they did their stock split on Friday until about 15 minutes before open when I looked at their price, and I was like, oh, it's $80. And historically, if you look at stocks that have split, most recently like a Netflix or even Tesla or Nvidia, like years ago, once they split, the immediate action is bearish. The price tends to sell off. We saw this with SMCI, right? So that was kind of like the catalyst for me to put on watch. And then once it broke, we entered here. I was checking. We entered here right when it broke the 15-minute orb. I think it was 9:45 Central. So it was right here on when it broke the 15-minute orb and a retest. This is another one that ran over 100%. So great trade. It was able to kind of slice through the 8-day EMA, and I think we took our final trims like down here. So really happy with that as well. What I'm watching this weekend. So we went through Tesla. What I'm watching this week. So we went through Tesla. Another one I'm watching is VIAV. We're wanting to get into this for a couple weeks now, and then we had this massive power earnings gap. And you can see here, like it's since that earnings gap up, it's kind of just been consolidating, letting the EMAs catch up. So on lower volume, it's sitting on the 8 day right now. What I'd be looking for on VIAV is a pullback to like the 49 or 50 area, or over 46, sorry, over 56.50 with high volume, right? And then with target, I think my targets would be 60, 65, and 70 at this point. So definitely a name one that's going to be on top watch if we get some early weakness in the market this week. Next one is AEHR. So AEHR, see here, looks like kind of building out a little cup here. What I'd be looking for with AEHR is a pullback to the 92, 94 level, or to break over 100 with volume. Again, with all these, I'd prefer not to buy a breakout because it's so easy to get stuffed and stopped out. I'd really prefer to find undercut and rally, a UNR, either on the 8 day or the 21 day, ideally, right? It gives you a lot more room to be wrong, right? So, you know, if we buy it down here on the 21 day and we close underneath the 21 day, right, we're out. But if we buy it up here on a breakout and it gets stuffed down, that's not what I want to see. So AEHR is another name. APLD applied. We got into this last week. Again, got stopped out because we did try to buy the breakout. And just mid intraday, it pulled back a bit. And what I'd be looking for here is, we're starting to build a little flag here on this breakout. What I'd be looking for is, build a flag out, tighten up, either break the highs, or retest the 8 day, or even down to this 40 level. The 40 level or 38 are the two levels I'll be watching for APLD to go long. And then another one that is all over Twitter right now, so that both Tesla and NVTS are all over Twitter. So it tells me I probably need to be cautious, and this might get a rug here if all retail sentiments on it, right? So I want to get into NVTS. I think it has momentum higher towards 20 and 22. There was a lot of flow that came in on Friday for the May $18 calls, and then June $20 calls as well. So with NVTS, I'll be looking for pullback to about the $16 level, or break over 1850 with high volume, right? So these are definitely my top five for the week. Other names I'm watching, I mentioned have earnings. EOS, last earnings, it's just shitty management, let their shareholders down. So it sold off quite a bit here. We're in the gap right now, and there's a 200 SMA up here around like 1050. So this is an area to watch. We'll see how the street reacts to their earnings. Circle is Monday morning. This is one I would prefer and like to have a position in, but with earnings, you never know. It's kind of a crapshoot. So, but they do have a catalyst, obviously, with the Clarity Act, and then with a lot of the legislation going around stable coins, the government, right? So, I would love to find a way to get in a Circle here after earnings. HIMS as well has earnings Monday afternoon. Again, just another name. I just feel more comfortable waiting till after earnings. If it pops up and gets a power earnings gap, right, we could wait for it to consolidate a little bit, kind of like the VIAV move right here. So those are some names I'm watching there. Rare earths look good again. USAR, kind of consolidating here off the initial breakout. Keep this on my watch. Another theme that is pretty strong, I think, if we look at software like IGV, it looks like we've kind of found a bottom here, and at least have room up to the 200 SMA here, about $100. So with that and IGV looking stronger, some names that I'm watching specifically in that sector are more on the security side. So the CrowdStrikes, right? If you look at CrowdStrike, it's just been since for the past 3 weeks, right? Just been on a tear here, up almost over 100 points in 3 weeks. Their earnings is not till early June, so definitely have some more time, more momentum to ride this out. You can see higher volume coming in on the buy side. Palo Alto, PanW, another security name, which I think at this point could if we could get over these highs, 225, this could get some steam and probably move up to like 300 in my opinion. So look for entries on this. This is another one that reclaimed the 200 SMA last week, and once it reclaimed it, you can see the volume coming in, right? Because institutions they might accumulate under the 200 SMA, but nobody really wants to buy a stock under the 200 SMA. Another one that was kind of in the gutter for a bit is Sentinel One. I think, actually, I know in one of my earlier videos, once I started TQE, I mentioned Sentinel One, I think, to members. I was like, hey, this is probably a good buy here. It's probably bottomed here. And it was around the $12, $13 area, right? So it's obvious. It looks like it's putting a bottom at this point. It's reclaimed the 200 SMA. So this is one that I would look for, any kind of consolidation or retest here. It's cheap enough that you could just buy shares and sit in it, but it has a long way to go to back to the highest, right? So definitely a beaten up security name that could pay well. On, going back to the AI infrastructure side, NetApp or NTAP, that's NetApp though, but you're dealing with storage here and data storage. So this name, looks good as well. We wait for it to tighten up a little bit. It's just riding the daily 8 at this point, right? So you could really buy it off the 8 if you're getting kind of UNR and ride it up. I think the options do trade thinner here. I have to check. And then another one is P Everpure, or it was Pure Storage before. This did see a move in after hours. I think it was like up to 80, but another name I'd look to enter here, which could definitely squeeze here with earnings coming up towards the end of the month. That's that. And then Poet, this did pop up and then it sold off. I think when that the news on Marvel said it, but the contract wasn't complete. But if this could get over the $12 range, right? Next, I'll target 15, and then further out from there, I think this is a name that could get some momentum going. If we zoom out on the weekly, you could just see the volume coming in on the weekly. The past 3 weeks have been like the highest volume ever, easily. With the mags, Nvidia, so highest weekly close ever on Nvidia, which is great. It was able to get past this, right? So it kind of invalidates that double top look. They do have earnings in about 10 days on May 20th. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, again, I'm not looking for a major correction. I think we see a minus 3% week in the market, and that wouldn't surprise me at all, right? Just to kind of get some consolidation, shake some late bulls out. Amazon, let's see here. Amazon looks great. Let it flag up here, kind of consolidate against the 8-day. Google as well, Apple at all-time highs. Probably, I think they did this last time, right? I was looking for Apple's for it to come down and retest the 21 and then go to all-time highs, but it came down a little bit, test the 8-day, and then kept pushing up higher. Let's see. Yeah, rare earths. I'm not going to go through all these. Obviously, it's Mother's Day, and I'm actually about to head out now myself. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at for the week. The trades that we took on the memory side. Talk about MU and SanDisk, right? These probably have a little more gas in them. I'd look for kind of maybe a blow off top on SanDisk to about 2,000, and then another name, the memory ETF DRAM. That's catching some bids as well. All right, so I tell everyone in the chat all the time, don't get FOMO. It's the last thing you want to do is chase these moves that are up, 50, 100% over the last month. Just wait. There's opportunity every day. If you don't want to put your hard-earned capital at risk, chasing moves that are if you got into MU a month ago, great, good job. Congratulate. I'm actually happy for people that caught this, right? But if you didn't, don't chase it, right? Just wait for the next opportunity, next setup to pop up. So, yep, that's it for the week, guys. Kind of what I'm looking at, the recap of the Friday trades with Tesla, Moderna, and CVNA. If you aren't a member, right, we're offering a free week trial for anyone that wants to join TQE. We have the Discord, we have the indicator alerts, the full indicator suite. And then for anybody that's following me on Alertsify to copy trade, I should be fully live in there on Monday. I took about 80% of my trades there the past 2 days, just working through some tweaks with the team there on just the contract availability that's available through their platform. But I think there's a fix for that coming out pretty soon. So that's all, guys. Appreciate it. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel. It'll help us grow. That's all. Have a great week.